What's up everybody, welcome back to my kitchen. Today we're going to be making some pastrami. It's a bit of a process to go all the way from start to finish. It's going to take about a week, but you can also do it with 1 day of slow cooking with a little bit of a shortcut we're going to talk about in just a minute. Let's just get started. To make pastrami, you're going to need a big old chunk of corned beef. And this is where the time really comes in. This is where you're going to be able to take a shortcut. If you want to completely make your own pastrami completely from scratch and completely control the flavor, it's going to take about 5 days of sitting in the fridge, but it's also only going to take about 5 minutes of actually getting it ready. If you're not interested in doing this, I'll leave some chapters down below. Just skip ahead to the part where we actually start cooking it. To make my corned beef, I grabbed a slab of brisket from my local butcher shop. This one was about 1.5 kilos. You could pretty much do any size you want, but of course larger pieces are going to take a little bit longer to cure and a little bit longer to cook than a smaller piece will. This piece also happened to have most of the fat trimmed off, but it did have this seam of fat running through the middle. I was a little concerned about how that might affect the final product, but it ended up being just fine. And this is curing salt. Pink salt, Prague Powder, and it's a nitrate salt, and it's used for quick cures that are cooked later like this. This isn't used for things like prosciutto, which are cured and then dried out for months at a time, but it's used for other things that are quick cured and then cooked, like bacon, pastrami, or corned beef. On its own, it's pretty toxic and you shouldn't eat it, and that's why it's colored pink, so that no one can be confused and accidentally season their food with it. But it does play a pretty integral role in making sure that our meat is definitely safe to eat by the time we're done with it. I don't think it's such a big deal with something like this, where you buy it fresh, it sits in the fridge curing in salt for a week, and then we cook it. Chances are that meat's fine anyways, but on the side of safety, and to give it the appropriate flavor, I use some of this. I'll leave a link down in the description for the one that I bought, but definitely do a little bit of reading and just make sure that you know what you're doing before you start using it. To brine my corned beef, I'm going to use a technique called equilibrium brining. And I touched on this topic a bit in a different video if you want to go check out more about it. But basically the idea is that based on the weight of what we want to brine, we're going to calculate the exact amount of stuff we got to put in there to make it taste right. So in a container that my brisket will fit into with enough water to cover it, I'll tear my scale with the brisket out, then I'll add in my brisket, cover it with water, and weigh it again. For each kilogram of total weight of brisket and water, I'll add 1/2 teaspoon or 2.5 grams of Instacure or pink salt, 2 tablespoons or 30 grams of kosher salt. I'll mix that in until it dissolves. Then I'll add 2 teaspoons or 6 grams of whole black pepper, 1 teaspoon or 2.5 grams of pink peppercorns. You could substitute for black here if you want. 1 teaspoon or 2.5 grams of coriander seed, 1 teaspoon or 4 grams of mustard seed. Cover that up and toss it in the fridge for about 5 days. After my 5 days are up, I'm going to dump out all that brine, replace it with some nice fresh water, and I'm just going to soak this for about 2 hours, changing the water every 30 minutes, just to make sure that it's not overly salty. Then I'll give it a little pat dry with some paper towel, and we're going to rub it up with our pastrami mixture. If you don't want to do all that 5 days of waiting, this is the part where you can take a store-bought corned beef that you really like, rub it, cook it, and it's done. For my rub, I'll grind up 3 tablespoons of whole black pepper, 2 teaspoons of pink peppercorns, 1 teaspoon of Szechuan peppercorns. Again, both of these are optional and can be substituted with black pepper. 1/2 teaspoon of white pepper, 1 tablespoon of whole coriander, 1 tablespoon of ground mustard, and 2 tablespoons of smoked paprika. I made this batch of pastrami seasoning with my last batch of pastrami, and I used about half of it there and about half of it here. So this is enough pastrami rub for about 2 full kilos of pastrami. Once it's fully rubbed up, nicely coated, really in there, I'm just going to let that sit and temper at room temperature on a rack and just kind of let that seasoning kind of crust onto there. After almost an hour has passed, I'll preheat my oven to 250 degrees, and I'm just going to toss that in there uncovered for about 2 hours. Again, just to help that crust kind of stick on there rather than just steaming the whole thing off. After those 2 hours are up, I'll take the whole tray out of the oven, tent it tightly with foil, and throw it back in until it reaches about 200 degrees Fahrenheit. For myself, with this piece of pastrami, it took about 3.5 more hours in the oven at 250. If you're checking it often, you're going to notice that it gets a little bit stuck somewhere around the 160 to 170 range. And this is a thing that's actually really common with slow cooking and smoking meats like this. It has something to do with the collagen transforming into gelatin and moisture evaporating out. It gives us a very tender product that we're used to getting with slow cooked meats. Once it gets past that point, it's going to progress very quickly to being done. So just have a little patience. It'll keep cooking. Don't even worry about it. My first one got stuck in this area for about 1.5 hours. This one, not so long. When it reaches that 200 Fahrenheit point, you're also going to notice that it's pretty tender and you can stick that thermometer in there real easy. But my crust was really soggy from all that steam. So I cranked up my oven to 450 degrees and did kind of like a reverse sear on it and just stuck it back in there uncovered for about 10 minutes just to dry that back out. Then I let it rest at room temperature uncovered for an hour, and at this point You can choose. If you want to serve it hot, you can do that now. If you want to slice it up for sandwiches and stuff, I stuck mine in the fridge till the next day. Or actually, it's now 2 days later because I didn't feel like it yesterday. That's all I got for this one. Thanks very much for watching, everybody. If you enjoyed this as much as I enjoyed making it, be sure to hit the like button down below. And of course, let me know down in the comments if you decide to give this a try. If you want to see more stuff like this, consider subscribing. And go find me on Instagram. I'm going to be doing a little bit more stuff over there that might not make it over here. And of course, if you're looking for a killer bread recipe or some sauerkraut to make yourself a wicked Reuben, go check out these videos over here. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye.